Welcome to my channel, I'm Gary Weriawan, and today I'm going to talk about my most used Micro Four Thirds lens in 2020. Let's go! Before we continue with this video, this is just a quick reminder for you to support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video, and subscribing to my channel down below. Thank you, and let's continue with the video. Alright, so 2020 is almost over. It's quite a unique year when we're not allowed to go outside too much because of this whole pandemic thing, and I wasn't able to do any traveling like I used to, but nevertheless it's still a great year. Although I spent a lot of time at home because of the whole quarantine thing, I was able to learn a lot of new things that really improved my skills in both photography, filmmaking, as well as in music. And I'm really grateful for that, even though 2020 is not the greatest year. I gotta say though that I don't have a lot of opportunity when it comes to photography as well as in video, so I don't really go out much because it's too dangerous to go outside too much. So I spend a lot of time photographing and making YouTube videos like this right now just at home. So right now I just want to take this opportunity to share to you my most used Micro Four Thirds lenses in 2020 for both photography and video, and I hope that these lenses are gonna be useful for you for your needs as well. So first lens that I want to share to you is the Panasonic 12-35mm f2.8, and it's the first version, and that lens is currently recording this video, so I cannot show it to you right now, but you are basically looking at me using that lens. This is a really good zoom lens with large aperture, and it's very versatile because of the zoom range of 12-35, which is equal to about 24-70 in full frame terms, and it's really good. I can get a little bit of a wide angle with it, but I can also zoom in a little bit tighter and get a tighter shot for detailed shots or something like that. And what I really appreciate from this lens as well is the ability to close focus. So it's a useful lens for product photography as well as for taking B-roll shots of some certain products or something like that. The versatile focal length also allows me to use it for documenting an event or something like that, because it's easy enough for me to zoom in and zoom out, and it's very quick, fast, and with the combination of the large aperture, I was able to even use it in lower light situation. So in this whole year, this 12-35mm has been my main YouTube lens, and I really love how wide the 12mm is and how the ability to zoom to 35mm is very useful for filming B-roll. And with the combination of f2.8 aperture, it's pretty bright enough to get enough exposure in my not so bright room, and I can get decent exposure at lower ISO, which is very useful for YouTube video like this. I made a video about the 12-35mm a few months ago, and if you want to check out a full review about that lens, you can go to that video. But anyway, long story short, if you need one lens that can do it all, a versatile single zoom lens with large aperture, this lens is the answer. You'll be most likely using it the most compared to your other lenses. My second most used lens in the 2020 is actually this Laowa 7.5mm f2. This lens is actually a small prime lens that has such a wide focal length and large aperture. It doesn't have autofocus, it's manual focus only. In previous years before 2020, this is actually my most favorite travel lens that I recommend to everyone, because it's so small, it's so light, but it's so versatile, and the combination of the wide angle as well as the large aperture is really a great bonus. It's producing very sharp image quality as well as for video, and I really love this lens so much. The large aperture of f2 really opens up a lot of possibilities, especially for astrophotography as well as for lower light landscape. But in 2020, where I cannot really go anywhere to travel and photograph like I used to, the main function of this lens is now also as my main YouTube lens. So basically, before I switch to this angle right now with the 12-35mm lens, I was using this lens for my main aero lens. The nice thing about this wide angle lens for your main YouTube lens is because of the wide angle, it actually creates a sense of intimacy, because you need to get closer to the camera, and that creates a sense of intimacy for your viewer. So yeah, if anyone needs a wide angle lens with large aperture, I can wholeheartedly recommend this lens for you. Alright, so let's move on with the third most used micro four thirds lens in 2020, and that is the Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7. This lens is actually performing almost like the Panasonic 12 to 35mm zoom, in a sense that it's a general purpose lens that I can use for any kind of situation that's not really specialized enough. 15mm is about 30mm in full frame. That's very close to 28mm. And it's a good focal length for general purpose photography. It's not too wide, it's not too tight, it's just perfect in my opinion. The lens is very small, it's very lightweight, it produces very sharp image quality, it has good micro contrast, and it's my preferred lens when I don't want to lug around a big zoom lens like the 12 to 35, although it's not large in my opinion. So throughout 2020, I used this lens mostly for general purpose photography as I mentioned earlier, but also for filming B-roll. I don't use this as my main A-roll lens for my YouTube videos because it's a little bit too tight, not like this lens right now, the 12 to 35, which is wide enough for my need. So I'm using this for B-roll because it has that unique perspective of 30mm in full frame, which is a little bit distorting but not too much, so it's just a unique lens to use for filming B-roll. The large f1.7 aperture is very handy when you're filming or photographing in lower light situation, as well as to create that depth of field, the bokeh. Next lens that I use the most in 2020 is not a lens, it's technically a micro four thirds camera with a micro four thirds lens built in, and it's the old Panasonic LX100. So yeah, I've been using the LX100 as my main B-roll camera in 2020, and it's not my main A-roll camera because it doesn't have the microphone input as well as the flip screen to make filming myself easier. So for my A-roll camera, I still use the Panasonic G85 that's filming me right now, but the LX100 is so handy when it comes to filming B-roll because of that built-in 24 to 75mm lens with the aperture of f1.7 to f2.8, so it's a very large aperture. You can get depth of field effect using that lens as well as filming in lower light. It's very easy to use, and for B-roll this is a fantastic lens. And camera, sorry. And for filming B-roll, this is actually a fantastic camera. And it also performs well when it comes to photography. Lots of my YouTube thumbnail is being photographed using this camera. Although this camera is very old, it's actually from 2014 or 15 or something like that, it's still producing a very great image quality in terms of video and photo. So I can recommend this camera, but I think there's a newer version, the LX100 Mark II, and if you're able to get that, then just go for that one because it has better sensor compared to this guy. Alright, last but not least, it's actually not my most used lens. I just recently started to use this lens again because it's Christmas and I need to create some bokeh shots using this lens, but I will try to incorporate this lens more into my shooting habit, and this is the Olympus 75mm f1.8. So this is actually a medium telephoto lens that has a focal length of about 150mm in terms of full frame and large aperture of f1.8, and it makes it very easy to photograph things that are a little bit far away, or if you want to isolate your subject and blur the background easily using this lens. The f1.8 aperture is very large, and combined with the medium telephoto, it can really get you the most bokeh effect compared to other lenses. To be honest with you guys, I don't really use this lens that much in 2020 because it's such a specialized lens, but this is almost Christmas, it's almost end of the year, we have Christmas tree in the house, we have lots of decoration, and I'm planning to use this lens a lot to create some kind of portraits or product shot that incorporates the Christmas tree lights or something like that, you know. And that leads me to an honorable mention, which is the Olympus 45mm f1.8. This is also not my most used lens in 2020 because it's also a telephoto lens. I don't really use telephoto lens that much, but I'm planning to use this lens more as well to back up the 75mm f1.8. You know, I want to use this to create portrait as well. Also for creating, you know, some kind of product shots that incorporate Christmas tree lights to create that bokeh effect, the bokeh balls, you know. Both of these lenses are so sharp, they're very good quality, they produce great image quality in terms of photo and video, and I can recommend them both. If you only have a small budget and you don't really mind the shorter focal length, then I can recommend the Olympus 45mm f1.8. However, if you have more budget and if you want a better quality lens with a slightly better image quality, then I can recommend the Olympus 75mm f1.8. Be prepared though, because this lens doesn't have close focusing distance as well as this guy, so you need to back up a little bit from your subject, and that might be some problem for you. But I'm sure for general portrait use or product photography, you can just do fine with both of these lenses. Alright, so those are all my most used lenses in 2020, and I really hope that 2021 will be a better year compared to this year. I know that we're struggling a lot this year. I'm struggling a lot this year because of this whole situation right here. But I really hope that next year we'll have more opportunities for photography, for filmmaking, for music, and I really hope that I can create better content for you guys. I'm striving to learn more and more about filmmaking, about photography, about music, and I want to share my knowledge with you, and I hope that I can keep doing it on this channel, and I hope that you guys keep supporting me by just simply subscribing and liking my videos and watching my videos and sharing it as well. Alright, so I think that is all for today's video. I really hope that you find this video to be useful. If you find it useful, please give a thumbs up. Also support my channel by subscribing to my channel and also sharing my videos to your friends and families. Alright, happy holidays, and I really hope that you stay safe and healthy wherever you are. Alright, thank you and goodbye.